trial, there has been a lot of mudslinging going on. There has been so much that Bill Worski is putting on a performance, and Bill Worski has been putting on quite the show, and he has laid out all the stops. He's trying to get ahead of basically what Mike Howard said in his affidavit. He was trying to sling as much mud onto Karmelo Anthony as possible. And Karmelo Anthony's parents, when he was saying some of the stuff, they were looking like, huh? Like, when did that happen? So it's interesting to find out what's true, what's not, but I'm gonna give you guys a very full, detailed live later. I'm just gonna go over. Okay, and let me know if you guys can hear me. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Hopefully the sound is good. But let's get into it. So early in the morning when we first got here, we lined up down at the end of the courthouse, and they had the lot closed off. So I don't think they're gonna hear me if I'm back there.
I got you.
Okay, so we lined up at the edge of the courthouse. Now, when we lined up, it was several people ahead of me. It was me, and then it was somebody that was here with me for security, which you see back here. And as we were lined up, we see Sippy walking up. So as he walked up, my security just, turned this way, and Sippy walked up. So he comes and he's looking at him, and he's like, dude, you just need to turn around. Like, why you looking this way? You need to turn around. And then he's just standing there looking at him, and then he's like, oh, you racist, you nothing but a racist. And then he looks over to make sure that the sheriffs are right there, and then he like goes up and tries to like get a reaction. But that's just what they do. Then there was Janetta, I think her name's Janetta Bradley, who enhanced the audio with the CETO call. She was there. Her wife and her saw that was Sippy, and they addressed some of the foul stuff that he had been doing to them. So it was a whole big old kit and caboodle in the morning. So tensions were very high. When we came into the courthouse, we lined up, we waited for hours to get in the courtroom. Once we went inside of the courtroom, we were all seated. Jeff Metcalf was standing up, and there were several people in the courtroom that had purple in solidarity for Karmelo. And you could see Jeff Metcalf like turning around to the people that was in the row behind him and looking them up and down, mad dogging them, like looking around. It was just a whole, they was feeling themselves today, honey. And so as we're sitting there, we're waiting for the judge to come out. It took some time in the morning. I think it was like 30 minutes or more that we were sitting there waiting for the judge. They were trying to make sure that some of the witnesses that were going to be testifying was going to be here. And there was like a little bit of a delay with like some technical issues. So the morning got off to like a little bit of a late start. But once the morning started, the judge came in. He introduced himself. He said that he was from Kaufman County. He was letting them know that, he's here to preside over the case in a short notice, and that it was Russell and the prosecution that they decided that before the proceeding started, they both wanted to do an opening statement. So Russell Wilson did his opening statement, and then he was just basically going over all of the points that he wanted to get the judge to understand on why he wants this motion granted. He went over the different claims that he had in his motion and why he believes that there was a violation on all three and why he believes that it should be granted. Now, when it was time for Bill Worski to come up and say, his opening statement, it was more of a mudslinging rather than addressing the arguments for why he decided for a motion for new trial. Bill Worski basically took it as an opportunity to sling as much dirt on Karmelo, sling as much dirt on some of the influencers that are watching the case. He called out people like Tiffany Billions. And then it just was a whole show. Now, one of the things that came out that he was so adamant to get out was some of the bad character things for Karmelo Anthony. So he says that, although to like the public and everybody else, it may look like, that the defense with the agreement, the gentleman's agreement, was them fighting with two hands behind their back. But actually, he says that they only had one hand tied behind their back because the agreement actually benefited them. And they were doing a favor because of the bad character evidence that they had on Karmelo. Now, I'm going to pause for a second to make sure you guys can hear me clearly. Make sure you guys are in the building. Also, make sure to like the video, hype the video, share the video. And we are out here, as you can see, at the courthouse with a lot of support. And we are boots on the ground. Now, you can go to different media outlets to get sound bites, but we are boots on the ground, and I'm letting you guys know what's going on inside the courtroom, what's happening behind the scenes. So if you would like to support my channel, I'd greatly appreciate it. I have a Cash App, which is NiqueAtNiteMedia. You can also show support by sending a super chat if you would like, etc. and so on and so forth. But now let's get back into some of the things that and actually let me back up. So one of the things that Russell Wilson wanted to point out was the fact that there was all of these hidden things that was happening. It wasn't just the gentleman's agreement. There was all of these off the record things that was happening. There was so many procedural things that were supposed to go on the record that just naturally they hid from the record. And when Bill Werski got up, he was like, off the record, that's what we do in Texas. That's nothing out of the ordinary. That's just something that we do out here or whatever. And we all was looking like, oh, interesting, but he was full of performance and theater. It was more of a theater show on his behalf than actually arguing the arguments. It was like, let me sling as much mud on these influencers. Let me sling as much dirt as I can, etc. So also, one of the things that he also wanted to say was, the gag order that they put in place, the restrictions that they put in place. He wanted to say that, this was because of the benefit of Karmelo. Like, we were looking out for him. We didn't want some racists to come from out of town and kill him. So we made sure that we, didn't put in certain things because we didn't want to light the flame on social media. And there was several death threats on both sides. The Metcalf family had death threats. The Anthony family had death threats. And we didn't want to pour gasoline on that or whatever. And he was basically saying that the reason why he didn't come in on things that he was supposed to be a part of, agreements that he was supposed to be a part of, is because they were carefully considering his statement. So Russell Wilson was going over all of the situations that was happening throughout the trial that he was supposed to be a part of. And they were like, well, we were taking his safety serious. We didn't want some racist to come in and kill him. And it worked. Everything that we did worked because here he is. He's alive. He's safe. He's not dead. And what we did worked. All of that worked. And I was just like, interesting. So when Russell Wilson later decided to bring it up, he said, well, they're talking about all of these threats, all of these death threats that people are having, all of these things that people are saying. And he's like, well, how many convictions or prosecutions arose from these death threats? Did anybody get prosecuted for it? Did anybody go to jail? All of these people are supposedly threatening all of these people, but there's zero convictions for any of it. You had a year of people threatening people, sending in threats, and nobody got arrested, nobody got prosecuted. And that's supposed to be something that was in the best interest or safety. And then he was like, surely if you would have arrested somebody and prosecuted them, that would have let people know that you're not taking this, you're not gonna just take it that people are threatening people, etc. So it was a lot of going back and forth with what each party wanted to say. Now, he also talked about how the immediate threats started with the victim's family, and he said, oh, and we were even getting threats because people were calling us racist for simply prosecuting the case. And then he said that the other side was feeling the same heat. Then he brought up Judge Angela Tucker, and then he said when she cut the bond from $1 million to $250,000, she got the most vile racist threats. And then he said even another woman with the same name, Angela Tucker in McKinney, she got doxxed and her address was exposed. He said, then you have all of these influencers, these disruptors that try to monetize murder so they can get clicks. They monetize misinformation. To our credit, we were warned about Mr. Anthony. We were worried about Mr. Anthony. To the reason he didn't come to court, we didn't have him come to court because we wanted to protect him. And then he said, that's when he said the thing about the racists coming into town or whatever. And then he talked about how they didn't want to transmit anything or put any files on the record because they didn't want anybody to leak any information. And it was so sensitive because they didn't want people to leak anything for their safety. Then he said that this is a stabbing that happened at a high school. And he says a lot of the witnesses were high school students. He said that their parents were so concerned about them testifying because they saw that the judge had been doxxed. They saw all of the violent threats, and their parents didn't want anything to do with this case for their kids. He said that the internet disruptors and influencers tried to dox all of the boys that went to the football team and put their pictures on their social media pages. He said that, so basically then he came back and said, this is more than about some person in Cincinnati who didn't get a seat. We were worried about Melo, and we're still worried about him. What happened needed to happen. And you will see all of that stuff. We did work, and we got a fair trial, and no racist came to take his life, all right? So then he talks about how Christopher King, who is a guy who has been coming up here and he's been online speaking about the case, he talks about how he said, and then some guy named Christopher King who says he's a lawyer but didn't pass the bar, he just kept fouling things. And Mr. Jackson, I guess the PIO, he wasn't aware of he was saying that Derek Jackson, the PIO that got fired because he gave out the court schedule, he said, well, he just wasn't aware that he was on our radar. And then he said that as a result, Christopher getting the trial schedule, that Derek Jackson, the previous PIO, was fired from his job. And then he said that there was so much bad act information on Karmelo. He said, let's talk about the agreement. The agreement was my idea. Toby Shook is one of my best friends. Why did Karmelo Anthony, he's like, one of the biggest questions was, why did Karmelo Anthony bring a knife to a track meet? He said, the state knows why he took a knife. It's in the 404 evidence. He said 8:30 a.m. that day, his girlfriend went to school, and she went and she told, I don't know if he said a principal or a counselor. At 8:30 a.m. that day, his girlfriend went to school, and she said that she was worried that he was going to do something, that Karmelo broke up with her, and he's now stalking her and he's scaring her, and she was worried about, stabbing or whatever. Then they said that there was a text message from Karmelo where he said, I'm low-key on the verge. He said he was spiraling because his girlfriend broke up with him. He is obsessed about knives and stabbings and murder. He fantasized about stabbing somebody. and licking the blade. He had a desire to start fights. And with a knife, he said, we did our research. He likes to fight. His parents put him in a program for kids who like to fight and can't keep their hands to themselves. I knew I had this leverage. He said, we didn't, wait. Oh, he said, we didn't want people murdered behind this trial. They said, well, as you can see, and then he pointed to the other side. He was like, as you can see, they did their research on Austin Metcalf. He's like, yes. When he was, I think he said 17 or whatever, he said, yes, he did do racist graffiti with foul racist stuff. He said, if we have an open pretrial with this, it will pour fuel on the fire. So I offered this agreement of what happened under the tent and like to keep everything like streamlined to what happened under the tent that day. He said there was a reason we had thousands of jurors, but only streamlined it down to 90. He says the father, he was talking about Drew Anthony, has a relationship with Tiffany Billions, and it would have leaked out. We got through this trial with protesters, and our police allowed people to exercise freedom of speech without mass arrest. What happened under the tent was enough for us. We ran a risk, but the values of the agreement was to keep it out of character, and it would have ran down on him. I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. We never talked about testifying witness. So then they got into the part where Mike Howard said that they kind of like switched up when it was time for him to testify. And then he says like, oh, well, yeah, like we made all of these agreements for protection, but we didn't ever think that he was ever going to testify. So we never got into the particulars of what would happen if he testified. And we would have loved him to testify because that would have been the cherry on top what do you say? That would have been the cherry on top to like nail him. And I'm just paraphrasing. And then he said that all of the bad character evidence that they had on him would have resulted in him getting a much longer sentence. So they did him a favor, basically, by having this gentleman's agreement. And then he said that they worked through it and they had an agreement and it holds. He said in the case of, they would have wanted him to testify. And then after that, we went on like a 10-minute break. After we went on break, then Jared Jackson, the former PIO, he came and he was the first witness. So basically what happened was anybody who wanted media credentials, you had to go through the public information officer. And so one of the things also was his duty to give the public information regarding the case. Well, basically the Associated Press wrote him and asked for the trial schedule. And he gave the Associated Press the first 4 days trial schedule. He said his motto was that whatever information he gives to one person, if another person asked for it, he would give it to them. Like he didn't differentiate between who could get the access, who could get the information. And after that, he said he was fired. He got called into a meeting with he said Bill Werski contacted him once he found out that Christopher King had this information. He said after that, Bill Werski asked to speak to his boss, and then his boss called him and told him that he had to report to the court the next day. When he went to the court, he said Judge Roach basically like chewed him out for 6 minutes straight. He threatened that he would put him in jail for 6 months or throw him in contempt of court. Derek Jackson said he thought that he would have the opportunity to like tell his side, like I didn't do anything wrong, like the Associated Press asked for it, I gave it to them, and he asked for it, and I thought like there was not a bad thing to give out like how like what times things are gonna happen. And he said that he was emotional, he was crying, he was shedding tears. He said like he thought that he was gonna have to go to jail. He said that they were like, well, did you think that you were gonna have to go in jail for like 6 months? And he was like, well, I didn't think I would have to go to jail for 6 months, but I did think that I would go to jail And I was trying to work through that, how that's gonna work with my family, how that's gonna work if they put me in jail. And then he said that after Judge Roach chewed him out for 6 minutes straight, he didn't have the ability to defend himself or say anything. He left out, and his boss handed him a yellow manila folder. And when they handed him a yellow manila folder, it was basically like, you're fired. And he said that was the last time he was ever at Collin County, and that was the last time that he ever showed up here. There was so much other stuff. He called out Gerald from the NCB. He said that, do you know why we were strict in vetting the people who came here? He talked about how, do you know the NCB, some guy from the NCB, he says, do you know records for him? He said, he was arrested for sending in bomb threats, and I believe he's in the audience, he's in the back row or whatever. And then he was like, so these are the things that we're dealing with. We have to basically figure out who's credible and who's not, who's bad actors and who's not. And just he kept trying to sling mud on different influencers. He was slinging mud on Tiffany Billions. He was just slinging mud on certain people. And I was wondering, you're calling out all these people. When are you going to call out Sarah Fields? That bitch did the most egregious stuff during this trial, doxing people. She went out of her way to make everybody who was any part of this case life a living hell. And you don't hear him mention her not once, but you understand why, though. They got this code where they protect their own. And Russell Wilson was like, when it was time for him to talk, he said, so it was okay for you to give the schedule to the Associated Press, and that wasn't violating the gag order. But if you gave it to Christopher King, that was violation. So you had to discriminate on who get the information. It was going down. We are on break. I'm super hot. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Stay tuned to my live that I do after the closing, and I will catch y'all on anything. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the hype button. I am bringing you guys all of the information straight off of the courthouse, the courtroom, and this ain't easy, okay? I was off of 2 hours of sleep, okay? I went to sleep at midnight. I woke up at 2 a.m. to get here at 3:34 a.m. Been in here at all day, thugging it out. So if y'all could support the channel, I would really appreciate it. There's a lot of people who are gonna give you skewed facts. I'm gonna give you the truth, the unfiltered truth. My Cash App is NiqueAtNiteMedia, so definitely look out for your girl. It's spelled exactly like my channel.